In a small town nestled between the mountains and the sea, there was a house that stood silently on the edge of a forgotten street. It was a house with cracked windows and ivy climbing over its walls, but to its owner, Eleanor Carter, it was much more than just a building. It was the last connection she had to a past she had spent most of her life running from. Eleanor was in her late 30s now, a successful historian who had built her career on uncovering ancient manuscripts, long-lost stories, and forgotten cities. Yet, there was one story she had never been able to let go of, the story of her own family. Her grandmother had lived in the house, and before her, Eleanor's great-grandparents. A strange silence surrounded the house after her grandmother's passing a decade ago. No one had ever spoken of it, not in detail, not even among the relatives. The house was simply there. Eleanor had inherited it, but never once had she stayed the night. It was a place filled with dust, memories, and unanswered questions. One day, as Eleanor sifted through the old family records in the attic of her office, she came across a yellowed letter hidden among a pile of dusty papers. The letter was dated 1945, during the end of World War II. Its contents were brief, written in a hurried, almost frantic script. "Eleanor, there are things you must know. Your father was not the man you think he was. If you ever want to understand your history, you must go back to the house on Everhart Street. The truth is buried there, but beware, it is not just family secrets you'll uncover. There are things in that house that could change everything." The signature was not one she recognized. It was simply signed, J. A cold chill ran down her spine. The letter had clearly been addressed to her grandmother, but why had it never been mentioned? Who was J? And what was so important about the house? The questions gnawed at her. Eleanor had always prided herself on her ability to find answers, but this was different. This was her family, her past, and whatever secret lay hidden in that old house seemed to beckon her. She couldn't ignore it any longer. The next morning, Eleanor found herself standing at the doorstep of the house on Everhart Street. The air was thick with mist, and the house loomed like a shadow of something long forgotten. She hesitated for a moment before pushing open the creaking door. Inside, the house was just as she remembered, silent, dark, and filled with the smell of mildew and dust. But now, it felt different. It felt alive. Her grandmother had never been one for conversation about the past. Every time Eleanor asked about her ancestors, her grandmother would smile cryptically and change the subject. It was as if the woman herself had been running from something, though Eleanor could never figure out what. But now, standing in the old living room, it was clear that this house held answers. The faint outline of old furniture remained, and faded photographs lined the walls. Yet there was a heavy, almost oppressive silence that weighed on her chest. As she moved through the house, Eleanor's gaze fell upon a faded family portrait hanging above the fireplace. There, staring back at her, was her great-grandfather, his stern face shadowed by a dark past. There was something about his eyes, something unsettling. She had seen this portrait before, but now it seemed different, as if it were hiding something. She began to explore the house methodically. First, she checked the study, her great-grandfather's private space. The dusty bookshelves lined with old leather-bound volumes seemed untouched, but one book stood out. It was a small, weathered journal hidden behind a stack of records. The cover was cracked, and the pages yellowed, but it was still legible. Opening it, Eleanor found a single entry: "The truth must never be revealed. The price of knowledge is far too high. If they find out what lies beneath Everhart Street, there will be no turning back." The entry ended abruptly. Eleanor flipped through the rest of the journal, but it was empty, save for the occasional line of cryptic symbols. Nothing more. Whoever had written this had clearly been afraid of something, of someone. She was more determined than ever now. There was something hidden beneath this house, something dark and dangerous. And she was going to find it.